start with how imperfect we are as human beings, okay? We are imperfect. We're always going to be imperfect, and anybody that we connect with and marry is also going to be imperfect. And yet we live as if perfection's possible, and we want perfection from our mates. And so we set ourselves up for unhappiness and disappointment and dissatisfaction because we're seeking the impossible.
Hello everyone and welcome to EnrichTV, where we meet today a super special guest, Arielle Ford. I would like to welcome Arielle and just send a virtual hug and a big kiss because we're so happy to have you.
Happy to be here, Darya.
Well, let me just tell the audience who listen us from all around the world, and many of them know about you, but if those who don't know, I would like to share just a couple of words before I give the floor to you to share your story and your journey a little bit.
Sure.
Arielle, I was so inspired by, first of all, your journey, how you came to the relationship field. And when I saw your series, the love series, I went through all of them and I was like, wow, this is a powerhouse woman. How did she make all this happen, collecting all these, relationship experts? And then I was like, oh, she's an author. And she's not just an author, but 10-book author and like a bestseller, an international bestseller. And then, oh, wow, and her network was like John Gray and Marianne and Williamson, and I was like the whole list of conscious experts in consciousness field of spirituality. And then I found out that not only do you write and connect people, but you actually called like a Cupid of consciousness. So tell us more about this, because this is a fascinating topic, and also a lot of the time people just question, what is consciousness? Is it mindfulness? Is it like awareness? And how is it relating to relationship field? And so many topics, so many questions, but let's start with the Cupid part.
I spent many years as a book publicist and a literary agent. And my clients back in the late 80s and 90s were Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Wayne Dyer, Don Miguel Ruiz, Neil Donald Walsh, Wayne Dyer, all these best-selling authors in the field of spirituality and self-help and consciousness. And I never saw myself as the teacher. But what happened was one day at the age of 43, I woke up really early in the morning. And I was still with my eyes closed, and I was feeling around my bed trying to find my cat. I had this big 25-pound cat, and he wasn't there. But what I discovered was this big expanse of empty bed. I was like, oh, my bed's totally empty. And then I had this thought, which was, oh, my God, I forgot to get married. And I was just lying in bed thinking, how did this happen? And I realized that, excuse me, I had spent all my energy building my career, building my business. And I noticed that I had used the law of attraction to build up this very successful business. And I started to think, well, could I use the law of attraction to manifest a soulmate? So I made a list of all the prayers and processes and rituals that I had done, and I started implementing them. And within 6 months, I met my soulmate. On the day that we met, we both knew. Everybody who was in the room with us knew. 3 weeks later, we got engaged. And a year later, we had 3 weddings. And that was 20 years ago.
My dear. And that was Brian.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy. And that was Brian?
That was Brian, yeah. And then as soon as we got married, a year later, every time I'd meet a woman over 40 who was single, they pull me aside and say, well, how do I get a Brian? How did you do this? Because 20 years ago, Time magazine had written an article that said, single women over 40 have a better chance of being killed by a terrorist than finding a husband. That was the belief. And I started to share my process with people, and of course it worked, because it works for everybody. The law of attraction is always working whether you believe it or not. You just have to know how to work it. So without meaning to become a love expert, I ended up writing this book, The Soulmate Secret. It did become an international bestseller. It's in 21 languages in 40 countries. Tens of thousands of men and women of all sizes, shapes, and ages have used it. But then once I got married, what I quickly discovered was that finding the soulmate was the easy part. Learning to live with them, well, that's a whole different experience. And I came into this marriage, I was 44 by the time we got married, and discovered that I had no partnership skills. What I was really, really good at was being the boss. Which is not a good thing to be in a marriage if you're married to an alpha male who's very masculine. So I became a student of love. And everything that I learned from all the experts that you mentioned that I've interviewed multiple times, I've done over 200 hours worth of interviews with the leading cutting-edge love experts in the world, turned into my book, Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate. So that's the short version of how I ended up here today. And I retired from publicity and agenting 10 years ago. And now I just spend my days talking to people like you, sharing what I know about love, because what I've discovered works. You just need to know about it.
Can't wait to hear that. And talking about turning your mate into a soulmate, I have my list of books that I recommended about relationship. I'm going to show this also to you. And
look at that.
Look at that. And yours sits just under Gary Chapman. You see?
The 5 love languages? Well, I'm honored to be underneath Gary Chapman, because that's the #1 book I recommend to people. If they're in a relationship, the 5 love languages is an essential, critical, and probably the easiest relationship book you'll ever read.
Yes, and also, Mate in Captivity, and John Gray, of course, Men from Mars, Women from Venus. And 2 weeks ago, actually, we were talking with John Gray and Esther Perel in Ibiza, discussing...
Oh, you went to Awesomeness Fest?
Yes, yeah.
That's such a fun event. I've been a couple of times.
I didn't know. I was missing you there because, obviously, for love and relationship topic.
I was in Italy when that was happening, so I couldn't go, but I heard it was great.
Yes, it was fabulous. And we managed to discuss these issues that we will talk today as well from your perspective. And I can't, help mentioning and also just showing like how it is important. And I was devouring it. I was like, yes, this is so practical and so tangible. I can use it, and I'm using many of them actually. And it was like, good. But those 16-step process at the end of the book was very good. But maybe from your own words, if you can describe what are those secrets that you've discovered that you can model from yourself and teach others, because we have so many single amazing women above 40. And even at that A-Fest, Awesomeness Fest, 2 weeks ago, there was almost half of the audience were single people, and most of them stayed single. So I would love to bring your wisdom to them.
There's just so many parts to that, but let's start with how imperfect we are as human beings, okay? We are imperfect. We're always going to be imperfect, and anybody that we connect with and marry is also going to be imperfect. And yet we live as if perfection's possible, and we want perfection from our mates. And so we set ourselves up for unhappiness and disappointment and dissatisfaction because we're seeking the impossible. So I think the first thing people really need to realize is that what you're going to do when you find your soulmate is you're going to find an imperfect person that you learn to love perfectly. And we have to start with ourselves. We have to be accepting of our own imperfections. It's something that I call Wabi Sabi Love. Wabi Sabi ancient Japanese aesthetic that seeks to find beauty and perfection in imperfection. So let's say this water bottle, was a Ming vase, and it had a long, crooked crack down the middle of it. The Japanese would take the broken vase and they would put it on a pedestal and they would shine a spotlight on the crack. So we have to learn to love the cracks in ourselves and the cracks in other people, because it's just what's normal. It's a reality. So that's just so important. Now, the other thing couples need to understand, and those who will soon become a couple, is that there's a man named Dr. John Gottman, who is considered one of the world's leading marriage researchers at the University of Washington. And he has the marriage lab where he's been studying couples for probably 40 years or more. And what he has found is that every single couple has a minimum of 9 irreconcilable differences, things on which you will never, ever, ever agree. And this is totally normal. But we don't know this, so we get into a relationship, we get into a marriage, and there's all these differences, and we want to change the other person because we think their way is the wrong way, not knowing that A, you really can't change anybody, and B, it's kind of a perfect setup. So some of these differences that are very common would be, most couples, there's a spender and a saver, differences about money. One person wants sex every day. One person wants it once every 10 days. One person is quick to anger. The other one avoids confrontation at all possibilities. So there's lots of these things. And the thing is to understand that this is very, very normal. And the way you learn to live with somebody when you have these differences is by clear communication and creative solutions, so rather than making them wrong. Because the truth is, you and I, we want to be loved for exactly who we are. We want somebody to love us warts and all. We want to be loved on our good days and our bad days. And people show up in relationship and they think that love is a feeling. Oh, Darya, I love you because I feel it. But the truth is, if we're connected, whether we're best friends or co-workers or a married couple, if I say I love you, that means I love you on the days I don't like you. Love is a behavior. It's a choice. It's a commitment. It's a decision. It's an action word. It's not a feeling, because the love feelings are chemicals in your brain. When we fall in love, and we fall into the state called being in love, what we're in is the socially acceptable form of insanity. Our brain is cascading dopamine and adrenaline and oxytocin and other things I can't even pronounce. And we go into this magical state where water tastes wetter and air smells sweeter. Everything you do is so adorable. It's called the honeymoon phase. But it doesn't last. Most people get 6 to 18 months of the good feeling chemicals, and then they're gone. And then suddenly, my cell phone went off. I thought I turned this little sucker off. Hang on, there we go. You're left with this human being, and you don't know what to do. But that's when the real work of soulmate love begins. Because according to Harville Hendrix, who Oprah calls the marriage whisperer, the true purpose of marriage is to bring up all of our childhood wounds for healing. So the purpose of the soulmate relationship is a path of healing. And as we know, personal growth work and healing isn't always pleasant, and it's often painful. But when you're with your soulmate who's your best friend, your lover, your cheerleader, your safe place to land, you're in this safe container to be vulnerable and to share what your issues are. Let me give you a good example of this. So my husband, Brian, was the youngest child. So one of his core issues is being heard, being listened to. I'm an oldest child. I am the world's worst listener. I am so much more interested in what's going on in my head than your head. So, of course, God brings us together. And soon after we get married, the thing I hear from him very often is, "You're not listening to me." And of course, I'm listening just enough to be able to parrot back what he said. But he was right. The truth was, I was reading my email, looking at my cell phone, watching TV, distracted, doing something else, not paying attention, which is what he needed. And of course, then I would get defensive, and then we'd have a squabble, and it would get very unpleasant. So what I learned was that, you know what? If I don't listen to him, he's going to find somebody who will. I needed to train myself to listen to him. And one of the things Dr. John Gottman recommends, and the thing that he sees is sort of a guarantee of a long, happy marriage, is when you do what he calls bidding. So if I'm like this, and you start talking to me, but I turn and I look at you and I put down and I give you my full attention, I am now bidding. We are bidding to each other. We're connected. And that's the sign of a strong marriage. We're actually present for each other. So there are skills to be learned in marriage. And I want to give you a couple of different reasons why you want to learn these skills. So the first one is really scary. We all know that 50% of first marriages end in divorce. But what most people don't know is that 62% of second marriages and 74% of third marriages end in divorce. Now, why is that? You married a different person the second time. You married a different person the third time. But who's the same in all three marriages? So, you know, even if you're like about to walk out the door today, like I can't stand this anymore, you're better off trying to save your marriage, return your mate into your soulmate, do the 16 steps, because chances are they're still your soulmate. Even if you're not feeling it, there are things, easy things that you can do to turn things around. So that's the first part. Now, what was the second part I was going to tell you? I'm at that age where my memory's totally shot. When I remembered, I'll think of it. But the point is, if you once thought this person was your soulmate, there's a 90% chance they still are. But what's in the way is days, months, years, decades of built-up resentment and disappointment and unhappiness. And you've been spending all your time pointing like they're the problem. Now, if there's bad behavior, lying or cheating or addiction or abuse, yes, then some of that is their problem. But if it's just general life and stuff that you're upset about, there's ways to fix it. Wabi Sabi Love ways to fix it. And if you want, I want to share one very poignant story that really illustrates this. So I have these friends, Jerry and Diane. They've been married for over 30 years now. And when they got married, Jerry was at least 20 years older than Diane. And he's a psychiatrist. She's a psychologist. What Diane didn't know when she married Jerry is that he has an addiction. He's addicted to poppy seed bagels. You know what a bagel is? Right? Every single morning, he goes to the kitchen before Diane gets out of bed, and he slices a poppy seed bagel, which instantly says hundreds of little black seeds all over her white tile floor. Then he toasts the bagel, and he takes it out of the toaster, and he puts his cream cheese on it, and he walks around the kitchen dropping even more little black poppy seeds. When Diane gets up and goes into the kitchen, every morning's the same. She wets a paper towel, she gets on her hands and knees, and she wipes up all the little black seeds. And most days, it's just not a problem for her. Jerry's older. He can't really get onto the floor. She understands. He loves his bagels. But one morning, as she was wiping up the little seeds, she had this thought. She was in a really, really bad mood that morning. And the thought was, I wonder what has to happen so I never do this again. And that was followed by the thought, oh, that would mean Jerry's no longer with me. And she started to cry. She got off the floor, she ran into the next room and gave him a hug. But from that day on, every morning, as she wiped up the little black seeds, her heart would fill with love because the seeds now meant she had another day to spend with Jerry.
Oh, beautiful reframing. The positive.
Right? But that's what Wabi Sabi Love is. Jerry didn't change. She didn't talk to Jerry about changing. She just had a shift in perception. She did a total reframe. She made up a new story. And that's what we need to do with most of the stuff that drives us crazy about our spouse. Because you've probably spent years bitching, moaning, whining, complaining, trying to get him to change. Nothing ever changes. But you could make up a new empowering story, one that even makes you laugh, so that it doesn't bother you anymore. And here's why you want to do this. So probably most of your audience is a lot like us. They want to live a long, healthy life. So they're exercising and doing yoga and eating non-GMO organic food and green juice fast and meditating and mindfulness, right?
Yes.
And that a lot of them come home from hot yoga, walk in the door, see their husband, and start having toxic or angry thoughts about them. And what happens when you do that is toxic and angry thoughts suppress your immune system for up to 7 hours. So however much time and money and energy you just spent trying to have a healthy life, you've now wiped it out. The other thing that's been proven is that the number one thing you can do to have a long, healthy life, to heal faster when you do get sick, is to have a happy marriage. So if you're going to make an investment in having a long, healthy life, first, number one, invest in having a happy marriage. Because all the science proves that you could eat junk food all day long, but if you're having a happy marriage, you'll still heal faster and live longer than somebody who's eating healthy and is filled with judgmental thoughts.
Arielle, there's so much wisdom, and we could talk so much about the how to turn soulmates into mates into soulmates. But I think a lot of the audience, they still want to know, how did you manage to find him? And
sure, okay,
they are all around. But
there's a whole video on my website. There's a half-hour video that takes you through the process of how to use the law of attraction. But the short version is, first you have to understand the law of attraction. So the law of attraction states, we draw to us the people, places, and experiences that match our state of being. So if your state of being is, I'm loved, I'm lovable, love is easy and effortless for me, that will be your experience. Or if your belief is, I'm a loser in love, I'm unlucky in love, love's for everybody else but me, I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too damaged, all the good ones are taken. If those are your predominant thoughts, that's what you're going to get. So the way I like to explain it is, you can't have anything that you want. If you're in a state of, I want a soulmate, the state of wanting is one of lack. It says something is missing. So the state that you want to be in is that I know and trust that the one I've asked for is already mine. And in order to get to that state of, I know that it's already mine, I teach people how to do a process that I call a feelingization. We know about visualizations. Visualizations happen in our head. They're very pretty pictures. Oh, I see myself driving my new convertible BMW down the freeway. I smell the leather. I feel the steering wheel. Isn't it beautiful? So those are the pretty pictures in your head. But in your heart, in your feeling state, I can't afford it. I don't deserve it. It's never going to happen. And guess what? You're right. So what I do is I take you from your head to your heart, put you into a state of feeling in present moment awareness, love and appreciation and gratitude. And when we're in this present moment of love and gratitude, then we drop in the desire. Oh, it just feels so good to be connected to my soulmate. Now, how do you know you're connected to your soulmate? Quantum science. So in quantum science, and this is proven stuff by the quantum physicists, there's no time. There's no past, there's no future, there's just this now moment. That is what's real. And in this now moment, we are already connected to everything and everybody. We are molecularly connected on the unseen plane. So the truth is, in this now moment, on the unseen plane, you are already connected to your soulmate. It's what I call love before first sight. So you can connect today to your soulmate. So I told you earlier that on the day Brian and I met, we both knew. The reason we knew is because from the day I decided to manifest my soulmate, I started talking to him every single day. I would close my eyes and have a conversation with him. I didn't know his name. I didn't know where he lived. I didn't know what he looked like. But I knew that on the unseen plane, he was already there. So that's the first step. The second step is to have clarity. What are the heart traits and qualities you desire in a soulmate? So we don't want a soulmate, because wanting is about missing. We desire. Oh, wouldn't it be lovely if he was lots of fun and liked to travel and was very generous with his appreciation and affection and attention, and he was very family oriented and this, that, and the other thing. So you get clarity and you write it down. You make what I call the soulmate wish list. And as you put these items on your wish list, every item you want to ask yourself the same question. Does this contribute to my long-term happiness? So if you're putting down height, weight, income level, hair color, hair, no hair, none of that will contribute to your long-term happiness. What you want are traits and qualities and values. Because the truth is, you can meet a lot of people with whom you have a heart connection and you feel like, oh, they're my soulmate, but they're not an appropriate life partner. Because what you need is a soulmate/life partner with whom you have chemistry, connection, compatibility, communication, and most importantly, a shared vision for the future. So for me, travel's very important. Imagine if I had met Brian, but he was agoraphobic and could never leave the house and didn't have a passport. Or even worse, imagine if he were allergic to cats, because I've never lived without at least one cat. Those were like two high values for me. Had to love travel, had to love cats, and also had to love my family, because I came with very close relatives. I was a package deal. You know, had he not gotten along with my mother or my sister or my stepfather, you know, we wouldn't be together. So that's just sort of a starting point.
Oh, that's so wonderful. So the law of attraction, as you said, it's not just about thinking of what I want and kind of visualizing, receiving it based on the want, but actually being in that state of
Have it. It is mine.
Abundance.
Owning it. Oh, it's yours.
Yes.
It is yours. Not like, well, I hope I get it. You know, it's mine already. It's on the unseen plane. If you're already connected to it. Deepak Chopra says that the way you know that your desire is going to be fulfilled is by the very fact that you have the desire. Within the desire is the seeds for its fulfillment.
Beautiful. That's so true. And most of women, although they say, look, I am already available. I feel like I have this love for myself and I can give love, I can receive love, but he's not there. I'm ready.
Well, you may be ready, but maybe your perfect partner, who is, of course, an imperfect being, there's a reason they're not there yet. It's called divine timing. I had this one friend who I was coaching for a couple of years, and she had been married younger, divorced for 20 years, was now 50, was taking everybody's relationship courses and would always call me up. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And I said to her, you know, you're not doing anything wrong. You're doing everything right. Just keep living as if he's already in your life. And I promise you, on the day that you meet him, you will find out why it took so long. And then one day she called me. And she said, you're right, I met him. And it took so long because his wife of 25 years was dying of breast cancer, and he just buried her 6 months ago. And that's why it took so long. And I know he's the one. And a year later, we danced at her wedding. And yesterday on Facebook, I saw a picture of the two of them on an airplane on the way to Europe to celebrate their 5th anniversary. So it was divine timing. He was out there, but he wasn't quite ready. And I asked her at her wedding, I said to her, Was he worth waiting for? And she said, absolutely. So we don't get to choose the day on which our desire arrives. What we do get to choose, and this is the hardest part for most people, we get to choose our thoughts and feelings and beliefs. Wayne Dyer always said, don't believe every thought that you have. So just because you're having a thought, oh, I've tried the law of attraction, it doesn't work for me. Oh, I tried online dating, it doesn't work for me. Those are ways to stay single, to keep feeding those thoughts. Neither one of those is true. Most of your thoughts are not true. You get to manage your thoughts, but managing your thoughts requires that you become an emotionally mature adult, that you have consciousness, awareness of what you're thinking. And when you're thinking thoughts, that what they call in AA, stinking thinking, that stuff that isn't supporting you, then you need to stop and you need to say, cancel, cancel. And you need to choose a new thought, a new belief, a happier thought. And if you want to have happy thoughts, think about, well, imagine that right now I'm sitting next to my soulmate and he's holding my hand. How does that feel? For me, I imagine it feels like champagne bubbles going through my body. And then I'm smiling, and I'm having the experience of, oh, I'm holding hands with my soulmate. Maybe not in the 3D world, but on some cosmic unseen plane, we are together. And so it's a process. It's not, a genie in a bottle. There is no genie in a bottle. But what is available to you is these very proven universal laws that if you take the time to master them, will provide you with everything you ever desired.
This is such a well of wisdom. And I think, it's already half an hour of this.
Oh my goodness.
And we've got so much out of it. So practical advice. And if people want to know more about you and what you teach and, about your books and courses, where can they find you?
The easiest place is my website, SoulmateSecret.com. And if you go to SoulmateSecret.com, you can get free chapters to turn your mate into your soulmate. You can get access to a video I've put up that's related to my new coloring book, but it teaches you how to manifest love. There's a little tab called Free Stuff where there's dozens of feelinizations. So there's lots of goodies and free stuff there. I'd also recommend if you're looking to manifest your soulmate and you're really serious and you have $12, you can buy it on Amazon for $12. Everything that I did is in this book. So it's really easy to find.
Wonderful. So everyone goes to soulmatesecret.com and chooses either improving the relationship with your mate into soulmateship or manifesting that using the law of attraction and actually creating a different state, different reality, and everything is possible. And you're a wonderful manifestation example and inspiration for so many women and men around the world who are looking for their partner, their soulmate. And of course,
and one last thing I do want to say, Darya, is that there are hundreds of thousands of possible soulmates for everybody. This story that we each only get one is not true. So there's no shortage of great, conscious men who are also looking for you. So don't let statistics get in the way. The truth is you only need one, and there's more than one out there for you.
And just before we finish, maybe for those who are still doubting that they can find one, what could be the encouragement? Because they say, that is a limiting belief, of course. I'm too big, I'm too unlovable. What is that little piece?
You have to manage that. You have to decide that it's just not true, that there is somebody out there for you. People always think, oh, well, I'll start dating when I lose 20 pounds. You're not going to lose the 20 pounds. And trust me, there are plenty of men out there that like the extra 20 pounds. What people don't know is, I don't know what the sizing is where you are, but in the United States, a size 16 is a plus size. Okay, you're a big girl if you wear size 16. That is the average size wedding dress sold in America. So, if you're thinking I need to be a size 2, 4, or 6 to find love, it's not true. Just like if you, let's say you were a single mom of 3 kids, you would know what to do to find a job, and you would be relentless till you found the job. Well, it's a lot of the same process for manifesting love. You have a clear intention. You have a list about what you need around a job. How do you want to feel when you're there? What kind of work do you want to do? You network. You go online. You show up for interviews. Only in these, it's coffee dates, right? You take action. You don't sit on the couch with, oh, if it's meant to be, love will find me. No. If you're one of the lucky 1% that trips over their soulmate, yes. But for the rest of us mere mortals, it's a search. It's a manifestation. It's a process. And you don't need to be obsessed about it. You just need to be in action. And the law of attraction is the word action. And at the same time that you're in action, you need to be detached and surrendered and trust that the one you're looking for is also looking for you. So you're in action and you're trusting. You're in action and you're trusting. And it's a paradox, and it's a hard thing to hold on to. But that's why you need to become a student of the law of attraction and study it. Because once you master it, you can manifest more money, you can manifest the perfect car, you can manifest the perfect little black dress. You can use it for all areas of your life.
Oh, I have one last tricky question. Actually,
okay.
1.5. So, for those women who love feeling in love, for those who just want to, like butterflies, jump from one to another because they find it, it's struggling, it's difficult, the relationship, as you said, it needs working, and they find, oh, I'm falling in love with a new person. Or if they're in long term in the relationship, they have this as a fair or open relationship, or they try to look into the modern, in the new ways of creating a different model. So what would you suggest to this type of behavior, ladies?
Well, it's a drug addiction. If they just want to have the feeling of being in love, it's a drug addiction, because really it's hormones going through your brain. And when you're in that situation and you get your heart broken, which happens probably half the time, what they've discovered is getting over a broken heart is more difficult than overcoming a cocaine addiction. That's how strong these chemicals are in your brain. So first you want to have a realistic expectation. Do you want to spend your life with somebody and experience real love, which will have good days and bad days? Or do you just want a drug high? And if you just want a drug high, then keep falling in love and falling in love and falling in love. But it's not love, it's a drug. Okay, so that's what's true.
I like that. Now, what would you say if I were to ask you to tell me your life story in 5 words?
My life story in 5 words? Oh gosh, I have no idea how I would do that. I would say that my life is filled with love and magical and fun.
Filled with love, magical, fun.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. It's been fantastic to have you. I could speak to you forever. I feel like I am your soulmate.
We are soulmates, yes, because we're spreading love, and we need to do this, especially now in the place that the world's in right now. Even if you've given up on love, like you don't think love's possible for you, do it for Darya and I, okay? The world needs you to be happy. The world needs your love so we can have a safer, more peaceful place to live.
Oh, thank you. On that note, I just want to, from all of us, to thank you for being here, for your presence, for your wisdom, for what you do in this world, and helping this world to be a happier place, a love-rich place, and blame-free place, and all the tools that you're giving us. So big thank you. And everyone, if you want to reach Arielle, she is on arielleford.com or soulmatesecret.com, and I will put all the links down below.